Welcome back to Realistic Progression 1, and now that we have first orbit out of the way, we need to think about some other contracts. So let's pop into the mission control and take a look at the archives. After the end of last episode, remember we built 2 of the Orbiter 1s. So there's our first artificial satellite that we got during the episode. We didn't fail it, so we didn't lose all that money. And you'll see I've got quite a lot more money than I had at the end of last episode. We got 180,000 for completing this, but I used the second rocket to do a signing rocket mission and essentially head straight up, which took us past 2,000, getting us 15,000. Excuse me, getting us 15,000, past 3,000, past 4,000, past 5,000, past 6,000, and we're into the 19,000 for each completion. So 20, it's it's close to 20. So another 100,000-ish for doing all of those altitude records. So we're up to 459,000. And of course, what I did with the artificial satellite, we'd simulated it last episode. I went ahead and flew it. So I'll just go and look at it in the tracking station. Went no different to the actual one that we did simulated. However, once in orbit, what we can then do is, because our inclination is 27 degrees, launching from Florida, where are we? Yeah, there we go. Orbital 1D. Because this inclination of around 27 degrees, there we go, see that quite clearly there, means that as we go around, we're orbiting much, much faster than the Earth is rotating, of course. And that means that we move over as each time we go around. And we will essentially cover a different area of ground. So anything inside 27 degrees positive or negative, anything inside this band here and this band here, we'll cover with this satellite. And that means we can gather lots and lots of science. So that's what I did. Went to gather lots of science, and we've now got, I think it was 18 science, was it? Certainly enough for another node. There we go. Let's head into research and development. Yeah, 18.9 science. So we can then grab another node. We've unlocked this one. We can go and look at primitive solar panels. ST1 solar panel, that's 16. But we've already got at least a tiny little faster one. How much does this give? This is 3 watts. I can't light a light bulb with 3. Well, I suppose I could get an LED light bulb, but not in 1950. Yeah, well, 1956 or something. Yeah, what's the primitive solar panel ones? 15 watts. Okay, getting better. But again, that's still not enough for a light bulb in 1956, 1957. So that's one thing that we'll have to do. A Communitron 16, which is what you start with in regular KSP. This is going to have to be unlocked by Lunar Range Communications. If we want to do Lunar Insertion, we will have to do that eventually. Basic Avionics and Probes. So these are the Junior Avionics, Explorer 7, Delta. Okay, and some improvements to the procedural avionics. Haven't played with procedural avionics too much other than the basic version, so we'll have to see what those actually allow us to do. That would be pretty cool. And the early controllable core is pretty cool as well. So that's down at the bottom end. Spaceflight electronics, that's going to be another bottleneck node, obviously, because everything else is going to be behind it, and this takes 25. Spaceflight material science takes 25. I can go for both of those, but we don't have enough science for them, so we may as well leave that alone for now. Life support tanks. And here's the juicy stuff. Here's the stuff we probably want. Here is the heat shields. Okay, so on the Saturn rockets, we haven't encountered much of the atmosphere, at least not at a high velocity, which means we haven't really needed a heat shield until now, or until soon. So unlocking these to be able to use the heat shields, and they're quite expensive each, as you can see here, will let us survive that re-entry. And that's important when we want to bring stuff back that we can't transmit via, antenna. But before we get there, I want to look at the 1958 orbital rocketry and 1958 solid rocket engines. Is there anything at the top? This is more plain stuff. We are pretty much doing unmanned before manned sort of playthrough. which means some of my astronauts are already retiring because we're in 1956, 1957, and they haven't had any missions yet. No problem. That's something we'll have to deal with. But so let's look at these. These are non-RP0, so we can't really use that one. It's a docking port, a tiny thruster, an RCS quad, which we don't have yet. We can use only single-axis RCS thrusters at the moment. Hydrazine, which is a good upgrade for RCS. And that's a tech upgrade for RCS, which leads us these last two nodes. And I'm probably going to take one of these. Let's look at the solid rocket engines first. The Altair and the Baby Sergeant upgrade. Okay, well, we haven't got to the Baby Sergeants yet. They're still to be actually researched, but they are on the queue. We've already spent on him. And then orbital rocketry. Now, hopefully this has some AJ-10 upgrades in it. I imagine it will, but let's have a look. So the LR-79 upgrade, so that by itself is the rocket that we already use, and we're already researching for test flight and stuff like that. The RD-108 engine upgrades, the RD-107 engine upgrades, LR-89, 105, and AJ-10 42 config. We want this node. It doesn't matter if you go in AJ-10 up a stage. What you can also do is go RD-105 like this for the main core, and then you can have LR-89s on either side of it and stuff like that. Doesn't matter which way you go, or even the Russian side of things. You're going to want this. So I'm sorry, we're going to have to take that node. Just have to. And then down here, we can't get anything over 25 science yet because we'd need to upgrade the research and development. So there's no point really looking beyond this level, even if we could get past these bottleneck nodes. Okay, so what missions can we actually get now? Let's look what's available. We can carry on doing the sounding rockets. And I should note, by the way, I built the Orbital 1 in such a way, and if you follow along, you'll see what I actually did. In such a way that we can carry up to about a couple of 100 kilograms. Okay, so that's just bear in mind if you're going to take any sounding rocket missions, there is capacity to carry that into orbit. Or, well, in the case of sounding rocket, you're not going to go into orbit, you're going to go up a lot. As high as you possibly can. So we have a decent amount of delta V on it. It's something like 10K, 10.4K, something like that. However, we're now being offered first polar orbit satellite. So we've only done an equatorial orbit, well, not equatorial because we're inclined, but an inclination of around 28 degrees. Polar orbit is harder. So if your craft is only 9.3, 9.4, you're not going to be able to do this. Because if the benefit that we gain here is not quite as much as Kerbal Space Program vanilla, but you still get benefit anyway. The Space Center is spinning along with the rest of Earth. So if we head east or, into that inclination, we're going to get a shove, or if you like, from Earth itself rotating, we're going to get some advantage. Versus exactly the opposite, if we launch in the opposite direction, heading sort of west, we'd have to still get up to that same orbital velocity, but now Earth's rotation would count against us. We have to achieve that velocity sideways relative to our the amount that we're falling towards Earth, if that makes sense. I'm not going to go into sort of maths or physics too much, but yeah, you're just trying to go sideways, sort of at the same rate that balances out perfectly the amount you're falling. Okay, so to get to polar, it's sort of halfway. You're going to need a little bit more than we had, just if you had a perfect craft for equatorial east, and we do. We have 1,000 extra delta V, so we should be able to fly this. Why do we do that? And here we are with a newly renamed Indigo. We've flight proven it, if you like. It can succeed into a very early orbital stage, so we can put a tank on top and fill this with, whatever we like. In this case, what have I got it filled with? Lead. Okay, so 16.8 lead, and that brings us back down to 9.4 meters per second. In this case, we're not going to worry about that. Take that down all the way. And that brings us up to 10.6, which is quite a large amount. And indeed, I can even take that off entirely. And then save this as, well, in fact, hang on. Let me just undo that and put this back on just before I save, because I want to save correctly. Okay, and then we'll just call this Indigo Polar just temporarily. Save it. And we'll take this tank off entirely and we'll replace that with science. Now, I don't think there's any benefit for the thermometer. I think we've got everything we can possibly use for that. However, it weighs nearly nothing, so having that on here is fine. I don't think there's any advantage of having the biological sample capsule on there, and it's still very, very light. So again, we'll put it on there. The Geiger Muller counter probably is a benefit to having that on there, so we will keep that. And the same, I think the ion mass spectrometer, though, that needs us to return this. How much does it cost? 250. Collectible data, rerunnable, resettable. So I think that needs us to return it. So, and does the biosample, in fact, collectible, rerun? Yeah, that may need us to return it. So let's leave it off. It's lighter anyway. So we've got this Geiger Muller counter. Let's just move that in so we don't induce any undue torque. Drop this in place. Okay, and just check to make sure the staging for the Polar is fine. What I actually want to do as well is I want to save a version of this B, if you like. What I want to see is if can we lose these. Okay, so let's just save that. I don't think we can, because you're going to need them lower in the atmosphere, but I just wanted to save that version, and we'll just grab the Indigo Polar, unload it. Alright, so we've now got this rocket ready to go. I'm going to build a couple of them because test flight could easily... Have we finished R&Ding these? No, we haven't finished yet. I did notice, by the way, that something had disabled test flight in one of the previous episodes, so I don't know what has disabled it. I've made sure it's re-enabled now, so there's going to be horrible rocket crashes at some point when test flight decides you're going to fail here and now. So we're going to build two of them. As you'll see, the cost is really quite low, and this is something that I wanted to cover on this episode. I think I've mentioned it before, but I did get a comment saying, hey, you know, you shouldn't tool everything. That's absolutely right, you shouldn't. I am at the moment, because I'm using each rocket a number of times, 6, 7, 8 times, flying different missions, and I'm doing it off camera. This one I'll fly on camera because it's a polar orbit and it's our first one, so we'll leave here. But yeah, if you're only going to fly it once in real rather than simulation, don't tool it. If you're going to use it, and this is the way that it's expected that you'll fly in Real Solar System and Realism Overhaul, you want to design a launch vehicle that can launch a certain weight into orbit. Doesn't matter what the weight is: satellite, lead, water, a car, anything like that's fine. But you want to tool all the parts on the standard launch vehicle so that you can keep on reusing that over and over and over and over, and it will pay you quite a lot of benefits to actually reuse that. So we're going to warp to... How close are we to this? Okay, Avionics prototypes is 47 days. So why don't we spend another R&D point? Yeah, 5.8 science. And why don't I buy a couple more points, actually? Okay, so we're down to 400,000. What's our tech like now? 39 days, but these are coming down as well. So yeah, we'll see how well that goes. I'm just going to warp towards the recondition of the launch pad, and then let's warp towards this 64 days. Avionics prototype is first, and that will mean that's going to be our next rocket that we design, because we'll have a prototype. Yep, there goes another astronaut. It's no problem. We'll have another prototype that let's just pop in here. Actually, we're still part way through building that. Avionics prototypes is down here. Here we are. So we can build the Sputnik. It costs 8,700. Of course, we can afford it now. Able Avionics. Sort of useful. Requires 150 watts. It has telemetry. And has some charge. That's fine. What else did we get? Early guidance, fine. And battery packs. Now we have procedural batteries, so these aren't quite as useful. However, yeah, if you prefer this kind of look, feel free. I'm definitely going to think about this one though. What do we got here? Requires only 1 watt of power, which is tiny. And does this have anything I don't already have? Maybe not. Where's the X-ray? Is the X-ray in the next one? Yeah, X-ray detector. That's in the next one. So that's the one I really want. So satellite era electronics research I want next. That's going to give us the solar panel. So let's pop out back out. Head over to here and then tech. What have we got? Satellite era. There we go. So let's just move that one up a little bit. Satellite era sciences after that. I want early avionics and probes, I think. Yeah, there we go. So it's still like 800 days. So that's a long way away. But, you know, things will unlock. And we're going to get to the Indigo Polar. All right, so let's roll that out. And nice launch around noon. I assume it's around noon. Oh, well, 5 o'clock. So there's not much of a shadow, but that's fine. 5 p.m. And we're in April of 1958 now. So let's launch, and I'll see you on the launch pad. Okay, so here's some important parts when flying the polar orbit, specifically with MechJeb. So it's only going to be dealing with the sort of attitude for us. So you want to make sure this orbit altitude is really high. We don't care about it at all. Because it's not capable of getting there. It's just going to keep going. Orbital inclination is 90, so we're going to go straight north. Keep limited throttle over 5%. Leave that alone. Keep it ticked. Force roll turn on. Now, specifically with this rocket, you'll see at the very, very bottom, we have these vernier thrusters. If it rolls as it normally does, we're going to head that direction, which is north, which is showing down on this, but we're going to head that direction. The problem with how our rocket is currently set up on the launch pad, we could have rotated it 90 degrees in the VAB, I suppose, but we didn't. So normally it would rotate 180 degrees when it takes off. And that has a nice benefit of cancelling out any kind of problem with the launch platform being off kilter slightly, or any slight nudge that it gets on just off the launch pad. It keeps it nice and centered. However, if we want to go that way, the thing with verniers are that they can only sort of pivot this direction. So they can't really send us that direction. Now we do have fins, but just bear that in mind that you may want to just send this to turn 90 degrees only. Okay? And force it that way. Limit angle of attack I've left at 12 degrees or so. It shouldn't matter. Occasionally things will go wrong and it won't be able to recover. That just sort of happens. This rocket is cheap enough for us to deal with it. We're going to auto stage and get the autopilot, show the ascent nav guidance. On this side, the ascent path editor, we've got start at 1.8 or 100 meters per second, end the turn around 135 kilometers up, with a final oh wow, that is hard to say. Final flight path angle of 0 degrees. This is the important one when you're playing Realism Overhaul. You can use this while it's actually flying to look at your apoapsis, to look at the time to apoapsis, and various other bits and pieces of information that we'll cover later. Mainly that your vertical speed and horizontal speed over here. Don't worry about them. But you can adjust this to adjust the angle without trying to manually fly it. Because if you don't have a joystick, and a lot of people in a Kerbal Space Program don't, in fact, let's just launch while I talk about that. Press space, and it'll take off automatically. At this point, we are going to disable auto stage. And that because that's all it's going to do. It's just going to take off rather efficiently. Yeah, and I'll keep on talking about this. So yeah, you can control this to sort of really fine-tune where you go in your orbit. So you can go past apoapsis and then start increasing this to point upwards above the horizon and stay up there longer. And that's sort of how real satellites are launched at the moment. There's a couple of other ways, but we'll go into those when we've got a bit more capable vehicle than this. It's okay, but now you can see it's rolled 90 degrees, and these verniers can now pivot this way, which means we can go over there without much of a problem. They should be able to compensate if we need to, you know, if these fins tip us over too far, at least these will be able to deal with it. So as you can see, they pointed that bit away, this direction, which started tipping it, rotating it clockwise, and then they're doing the opposite now. They're trying to tip it the other way, so keeping it from falling over, essentially, in midair. Alright, so why don't we just accelerate, and hopefully test flight won't get us. Test flight is accumulating flight data, good. Alright, and we're going to go all the way up and over. Ooh, that doesn't look good. It wobbled, but it recovered. Recovering is very, very good. Okay, and because of the AJ-10 upper stage, we don't have to worry too much about this one, about lighting, because we can coast a little bit without any problems. So we can go all the way down here, all the way down to effectively 0. But we're already 55, we're above a lot of the deep atmosphere, so we can remove our fairings if we wanted to. I'm just going to wait until we're, yeah, around about now, so we're back at real time. Let's lose our fairings, off they go. And there's our satellite, with our sort of science payload on the top. And we should be running out of fuel anytime soon. Okay, there goes our fuel. So if we have a look at the map screen, what we should see is we're heading directly north. And if you want to also look on here, the heading is sort of 357 degrees, so almost 360. So we're nearly north. And now we can think about the polar orbit. Now I've got a couple of minutes, I think. Yeah, here we go. We just hit space. So 3 minutes 16 till apoapsis. We've got 2 minutes left in the next stage. But I think we want to detach actually, because of the electric charge. Yeah, a bit low on electric charge. I should have detached sooner, but that's okay. It'll still be okay, because the rockets are cheap. So from here we're okay to leave it for another minute or so. If we have a look in the map screen, you'll now see why this polar orbit is so valuable. At least it will be once we have some solar panels. Now that we can go this way, as the Earth rotates underneath us, we'll get to every single biome eventually. We won't have the battery power for this first launch to do that, but we will in follow-up launches. So let's head forwards a little bit in time. And let's just wait until we're... there's the atmosphere coming in. That's just a bug. So 1 minute 12. We can now just trigger our boosters. That's going to push us forward, which will let us stage. And the AJ-10 died. Oh no. What did the AJ-10 die? Failed to ignite. It just failed. And that is the death of a satellite. But that's the way it goes with test flight and everything else. And the solid fuels have now died as well, or at least one of them has died. So nothing much you can do in that case. That's just test flight, and that's one of the benefits of having the ability to tool parts so you don't spend huge amounts on the rocket. Now I'm not going to cover that too much in depth. I did simulate this beforehand, and it will make it into polar orbit, assuming that the engines don't die. So yeah, I won't cover that on camera again, but we'll just take the science as it comes when we fly another polar. Now, while I'm not going to show the polar orbital ascent again, I can just quickly point out that if you want to duplicate this, you can just click on it and click duplicate. You don't have to go back into the VAB again. Just keep another spare while you keep on manufacturing them, and eventually you'll get enough flight data for test flight to not fail one of your rockets or have a lower chance of failing. Make sense? You can also rush build things, but that's only really if you're going for contracts. How much time do we have left? That is the question. We've got 293 days, and how long does it take to make each of these? 60. So, yeah, we've got at least 4 more attempts before we run out of time. So I think that should be more than enough. We shouldn't need to rush build these. We can, of course, buy more points and then upgrade the VAB to be able to build things faster. That's worth doing soon enough, but for now, let's just see if I can get one into orbit, shall we? And join me there. Okay, so here we are at the AJ-10 stage. This is the second rocket, the one immediately after the failed one. So it's now proceeding into orbit, or it's trying to. Its periapsis is coming up, so we'll have to wait for that. There's only 13 seconds, so it's going to be very close, but we should still be okay. As soon as it drops under 1,000 kilometers, 1,000 kilometers, you'll know things are going okay. So there it is. We've got an orbit that will go out to 2 millimeters, megameters even. Wow. So yeah, 3.11. So if you have a look at the map screen, you'll see that we don't have a circular orbit. I could have cut us off. I could have made it to be really circular as much as possible. But nope, this will be fine, I think. No real problems with that. Now, we only have so much electric charge. So what we're going to be looking for, this is still in the forest and shores. In fact, where are we? Yeah, we're over Canada. We're going to be going up towards the poles. And as soon as we get there, we should get interrupted by science here and now. You'll see our electric charge is going down. But we've got cosmic ray science and telemetry analysis. We can send both of those back. So that's another 6 science. And what was that take up? Let's see which biome that was. I missed which biome it was. We're out of connection anyway. We have to wait till we come back into range of something. So where have we got there? Svalbard on that side and Fairbanks. I assume that's Alaska. So let's keep going and hopefully we'll be in range of one of them. Still not in range. So Tundra, we will take both of those. Won't be able to transmit them just yet, so let's go forward a little bit. Oh, in range we are, so we can transmit them both. And we'll get another 6 science, of course. That'll then probably unlock one of those other nodes. If not, the next set of stuff when we go over the top and down the other side of Earth. You'll notice we've still got a fair amount of electric charge. You will have enough time to go around Earth a few times if you detach from the lower stage. So what I did in the sort of tropics areas that we were able to cover with an eastward launch, and it's what I'm now doing with a polar launch. So we can go over the top and you can accelerate to get your science get sent to the ground sooner. Now hopefully you maintain connection, otherwise that's going to be a problem, but we're going to carry on going around. Now here we are, so grasslands. So again, another 6 science. Yep, that will be just fine. And head forwards. Desert. Now, I think did I already get desert? I must have already done it, so that's fine. Desert biome, obviously, you can get from the China sort of area. Mountains, we'll definitely take those. So that's 24 science already, just from this one rocket, costing us around 2,000 funds. Keep on going. And yeah, we've got plenty of electric charge left. What I'm probably going to do, I didn't do it in time for this original satellite that I flew. It ran out of electric charge entirely. But for this one, I want to make sure I hit range safety just to clean things up. There we go. So ice caps. So that's the southern pole. And we'll continue going. Hopefully I remain in connection. We've got enough dishes on the ground that should be fine, but it's further out when we start to get problems with the opposite side of the moon or all kinds of other stuff like that. That's where we come into sort of programming maneuvers ahead of time, but we don't need to worry about remote tech just yet. And now we can just go around the Earth and we should be able to just watch the electric charge drain down And what I want to do is stop it before it gets to 0. Yeah, and we're just not going to get any more science now. So I'm just going to be able to hit range safety, and that's pretty much it for this satellite. We're not going to be able to do anything. So let's just click on you, range safety, and goodbye, Indigo Polar. We knew you well. Although you shouldn't really blow things up in space like this. There's a very, very bad effect when that happens, but we're so early, there's only one satellite in orbit. So that kind of effect, yeah, that shouldn't actually occur. Anyway, yeah, and the effect, by the way, if you don't know what it is essentially it's a sort of theoretical thing where if you blow something up in orbit, it produces shrapnel. Shrapnel which hits other satellites in orbit, which produces more shrapnel, which hits other satellites in orbit, and you end up with just shrapnel everywhere, essentially. Yeah, let's head back to the Space Center. We won't be worrying about that for about, a few more decades. And we now have 32 science. So while that brings us to the episode, at the end of the episode on polar orbit, or at least our first polar orbit, it does let us spend on more of these nodes that we really want to get to. Ooh, in fact, there's an even further rocketry node. I do like the rockets. I should be spending on other things other than these. So, although there is more LR79 and AJ10 upgrades in there, no, I guess I really should look at some of the other stuff. So, I'm more inclined to think about heat shields, to be honest. So, I'll spend on that before I think about it even more. The rest of these are all 19. Is there anything that is still 13? Ooh, 13. We can go for the Altair solid kick motor. And a Baby Sergeant upgrade. Well, I'm not keen on that, but what's the node behind it? Large separatrons. Separation motors, I guess, if you want to call them that. And primitive solar panels, lunar range communications. Yeah, let's bank that, I think. Let's bank it and we'll come back to it once we get some more science, which, of course, we're researching. So, I think that's brought a good end to this one. I'm really hopeful that we did get that mission. We did get it complete, I think. First polar orbit satellite, yes. So we got 48,000. Of course, I spent a bunch of points on research, if you remember. Research and development speed. And, of course, we're back up to 427 again. So what is it giving us next? And this is going to be for the next episode. For solar power satellite. Okay, so its periapsis has to be above 300,000. So if that node unlocks with that 3-watt solar panel, oh, we're going to need a few of those. Then we can get a periapsis above 300,000, and we can get another 48,000. That may even be doable with our current rocket. Because I think we can get to 300,000. We're already getting to like 280 odd. So yeah, I think we can do that one, hopefully. And then we got some new types of satellites. So Sun Synchronous. Oh, okay, so we're going to have lots of fun with those. Lunar flybys, uncrewed. Lots of money for that. Impactor. So hit the moon. Technically, I think you can do both of those. Because it says flyby, and you can do them both at the same time is what I mean. Because if you get within 500,000 kilometers, then transmit the science back to the KSC before you impact the moon, you should be able to do both. But I don't think I'm going to try that. The main thing with Lunar Insertion is you can only do it at certain times of the month, and because of the inclination of the moon, at least this early anyway. And it sort of requires a much more complicated rocket. You need to be able to get into... You either try to get into orbit at exactly the same time as... the same inclination sort of as the moon passes by, and then you can go straight away. You just keep burning, and that's just ridiculously hard. Or you have something that can get you into orbit, and then you have an extra stage that inserts you to the moon. And that's probably the way I'm going to go for that. An orbiter is just no. we need a further stage to actually slow down. So the impactor and the flyby are both possible, are the same kind of rocket. The only difference is the impact. You have to be more precise because you can't really adjust, except by just little RCS sort of motors. You can't really adjust your path too much once you've actually started the burn of your rocket. This early, we can't reignite the engines, so very often they're just one-time only sort of deals, which is fine. You know, we can cope with that. But we'll cover that in another episode. So there's more sounding rockets. Next is probably going to be a solar-powered satellite, and then we'll see about some synchronous stuff once I take a look at some of this and how easy it is. See, the inclination is already, that's already like a polar orbit, essentially. Yeah, so I have to look at that later. Okay, and the main problem is this is eccentricity, because we don't have any control at the moment of a shutdown. Eccentricity just means how circular the orbit is, and this just means very circular. So yeah, that's going to be another time. Hope you enjoyed this episode. We've got polar out of the way. And join me for the next episode for more in RP1. Thanks very much for watching, guys. Feel free to subscribe, share, thumbs up as normal. And looking forward to hearing your comments. Thanks for watching.